Hi Lanier, this is Drew Lassen presenting my final mix portfolio. This is my third song, and the artist was Beso Negro as part of the National Music Sanctuary session. And so the first thing that I did with this session is that I basically cut out a lot of the unnecessary microphones. For the two guitars, we use those two Beyerdynamic microphones, and they really picked up more drums than anything, since they're facing the drummer. And I think the guitars were moving around a lot, so it just really didn't sound good, and it was hardly picking up any guitars, so I deleted those right away. And also the Wonder microphone that was right above the violin obviously caught a lot of the higher end of the drums. However, I kind of left that in very, very slightly mixed under the drums. You probably won't be able to even hear it, but it added that high end, which actually I thought sounded relatively interesting. So just kind of left that there. I doubt it really does anything for the mix, but yeah. And so for the bass as well, the bass was going in DI as well as going through our bass amp and being recorded by the RE20. However, I kind of A-B'd the RE20 and the DI, and I surprisingly liked the DI a lot more, which I thought was kind of interesting because I didn't think DI on a stand-up bass would sound that great, as well as the violin. The violin's DI sounded great as well, and their guitar DIs all sounded really amazing, so I thought it was kind of interesting. The main thing I did for those, since they sounded good on themselves, was added a little bit of reverb and delay so that they, sounded a little bit more live and like they're actually in the room. And then I cut out the high tom completely because he never played the high tom, and I cut out the low tom too, besides this one single hit. And for the sub kick, sorry, let me pull up these inserts. Yeah, so for the sub kick, I applied a small high pass filter because didn't really want the really, really low sound on here. Thought it kind of like muddied things up a little bit since it's, really kind of faster song, and I took away a lot of the higher end content with a low pass filter, just because there's really nothing there, and so might as well get rid of it. And this is what it sounds like. See, it's not really much difference that you can hear. For the kick, he had his own kick placed inside the his kick drum, and it was I can't remember exactly what microphone it was, but anyways, this is what I did to it. I applied a high pass filter to give room for the sub kick. I took away 563 because there's this really cardboard, muddy sound that I didn't like, and I boosted a little bit above 2K to give it that kind of click and presence in the mix, and this is what that sounds like. And without it, with the sub. Yep. Then for the snare top, I applied a high pass filter to get rid of the kick sound in it and to make way for the close mic kicks. I bumped a little bit over here just because when I took this away, it kind of left a low end, and it really had a little bit too much bite, so I took around 8K, and because I felt like the snare bottom significantly fulfilled that. Anyways, after I applied EQ, I compressed it with a really quick attack and quick release with a 4:1 ratio to kind of give it a snappy feeling. So not doing too much, but just kind of evening it out a little bit. And then I bussed it to the reverb track. It's labeled guitar reverb, but I was using it for everything. And I used this room setting just exactly how it popped up because I thought it sounded good. I didn't want to really use anything too extraordinary because, they were filming this and wanted to make it sound like it was actually in the room. For the snare bottom, for some reason the channel we always end up using for snare bottom just because we always use sub, kick, snare top. So it must be 5, I guess. It has a built-in high-pass filter, really high up for some reason. Because without the EQ, this is what it sounds like. And obviously that should be picking up a lot more low end, especially like when the kick is hitting. But anyways, yeah. So I blended these two mics. Yep. Then for the low tom, I applied a high pass filter, bumped around 125 to really give a low end oomph. Took out that mid range flappy nastiness around 5K. Had a little bit too much presence and click right here, so I attenuated a little bit above 3K and kind of bumped up around 10K to give it some attack. And this is what that sounds like. Yep, and then we also put an E22 on that I did pretty much the exact same thing. Then blended it slightly under because I thought the 421 sounded better. Yep, and then for the overheads, I applied a high-pass filter, make way for the kick drum as always. Took a little bit of this mid-range, and then I did this weird kind of gradual high shelf in order to give it a lot of brightness. And then I compressed these a decent amount. But with just a 4:1 ratio. And then to kind of fill it in, I just put a little bit of Ascend onto that auxiliary reverb track. And yeah, this is how it sounds like. Then without the EQ, really muddiness, picks up a lot of the low end, and when you don't put those high pass filters in, the kick sounds terrible and undefined and kind of overpowers everything, and you don't really want that much low end in your mix anyway, so I think it's good to always take that out. Yeah. And next for these vocals, since both of these vocal mics were facing the drummer, it picked up a lot, but when I took away, when I deleted these sections, and completely changed the sound of everything. Not completely, but it was a noticeable amount, so I kind of had to leave it in. Yeah, I did a lot for the vocals. And for the vocals, I panned the lead one center, and then I panned these ones respectively halfway. So that way, because as you can see over here and what I'll get to later, the guitars are panned hard left and hard right, and so these kind of just fill up the middle of the mix. And for the vocals, I applied, really took out like a lot of the low end, took out some mid range, and boosted a little bit above 2K to give it some presence in the mix. Then for all these other ones, I gave them some delay. I compressed them with an LA2A, and I gave them, instead of busting it to that hall reverb, I gave them this ambient reverb. As you can see, I really didn't give them too much at all, just to kind of fill it out a little bit. And this is what the vocals sound like.
Been too long. I doubt I have the strength to go alone.
Oops, forgot this one.
Been too long. I doubt I have the strength to go alone.
Yep. And for this one, I pretty much did the exact same because they all had too much low end, too much mid, and gave them some presence. Believe I compressed this one a little bit more, and then I kind of did this thing where I applied these exact same plugins and everything, and then I one day Colin and I were messing around with this and some this Sans Amp plugins, and came across this vocal through an amp. It was this really distorted, nasty sound.
I doubt I have the strength to go alone.
But then I came back home and was messing around with it and thought it sounded pretty cool blended under the main mic, just since his is the lead vocals, just to really give it some presence and punch in through the mix. This is what that sounds like.
Been too long. I doubt I have the strength to go alone.
See, not too much of a noticeable difference, but once in the mix, it really, lets it cut through. And then for the guitars, the DIs really surprised me how good those sounded. Panned them hard left and hard right respectively, so that their hobbies are both panned to the left. And for these, high pass filter, took a bit of the mid range and bumped 2K because I like bumping 2K for the guitars. It gives it a nice amount of presence, and also since they're DI, they sounded pretty sterile, so I bussed those to the auxiliary reverb track, and this is how these sound. Yep. And for the violin, didn't do too much. High pass filter, took a little bit of mid range and slightly brightened it up. This is how this sounds. Oh. Weird crosstalk in this one. And, it's safe, solo saved. Yep, and I panned this up through the center. Even though he's playing on the right, I thought it sounded weird when I panned it to where he was at, just because he has a lot of his own little solos and fills and everything. Then for the bass, I stuck with the DI because I thought it sounded great. For the EQ, high pass filter, bumped the low end, took away this kind of clicky sound, and added some presence to the bass. So with it, without it. Yep, and that's pretty much it for this song. That's how it sounds like with everything.